world is always full of strange things that we cannot fully explain, we are really too small in front of this huge universe. What we can't see doesn't mean they don't exist. Recently, scientists have found evidence of a multidimensional universe inside the human brain. This is a shocking discovery of science experts. With about 86 billion brain neurons, humans are the most complex structures in nature that we still don't fully understand. By using the mathematical methods of algebraic topology, an international team of researchers has finding never-before-seen results in neuroscience. They discovered that the human brain has multidimensional geometric structures with dimensions that can go up to 11. In an attempt to identify human brain structures, scientists discovered that the geometry of neural connections and how they respond to stimuli different, displayed as a multidimensional universe. As explained by scientists, each single neuron in our brain can connect with an adjacent cell in a specific way to form an object with complex connections. What's interesting is that the more neurons that join the groups, the more dimensions that are associated with the object. Statue. With the help of algebraic topology, experts were able to model the internal structure of a virtual brain. The experts then conducted tests on real brain tissue to verify the results. They found that groups of neurons connect into clumps, and the number of neurons in a cluster determines the dimension of that cluster. This is a mathematical dimension, not a space or time dimension, says neuroscientist Henry Mark Graham from Epfel, Switzerland. We have found worlds that no one could have imagined existed before. Tens of millions of clusters of neurons in a small patch of the brain, up to 7 dimensions in size. In some networks we even find 11-dimensional structures. We often assume that the world has only 3 dimensions, length, width, and height, so describing 11-dimensional structures is quite difficult. But this research could be the next important step in understanding the human brain, the most complex structure we've ever known. This is not the dimension of space, it refers instead to the number of ways in which clusters of neurons are connected, each of which is a one-dimensional neural network, analyzed based on groups of connected neurons. Fully together, each of these groups is called a cluster. There are connections between these clusters in the brain. The number of neurons in a cluster determines the size. In other words, its dimensions. The human brain is estimated to have up to 86 billion neurons. Each neuron in the brain can specifically connect with surrounding neurons in all directions, which can form a supergiant network of cells, and somehow makes us capable of thinking and being conscious. Due to the huge number of connections, we still don't fully understand how the brain works, yet mathematical modeling can help us create digital brains that simulate our own, to control our brains. Check the accuracy of the mathematical model. The team used a detailed model of the cerebral cortex that the Blueprint project published in 2015. The cerebral cortex is believed to be the most developed part of our brain and is involved in a number of higher-order functions such as perception and feeling. After developing a mathematical model and testing it on a number of computer simulations, the team confirmed their results to be true in mouse brain tissue. According to the family of math and simulation tools that allow us to a close-up look at the cellular level of individual neurons and the entire brain structure, they found a remarkable amount of diversity of multidimensional groups and wholes, which has never been seen before in neural networks, whether biological or artificial. According to mathematician Alan Hirsch from Epfel, algebraic topology is like microscopes and telescopes combined as one. It can look deeply into the microscopic structures hidden inside, like each leaf on a tree, even larger structural gaps. According to Dan Live from the University of Abadan, the study's co-author said gaps in the brain may play a very important role. When the scientists did a numerical simulation, they found that the neurons respond to these gaps in a very organized way. It's like our brain responds to a signal by generating multiple multidimensional structures, describe that signal and then destroy those textures. Multidimensional blocks start with 1D walls, then 2D planes, 3D cubes and more complex geometries with 4D, 5D. The brain works like it's continuously building multidimensional sum castles in a way that materializes information, then processes and destroys it. This process is repeated continuously. This comes with fascinating new pictures of how the brain processes information, but the researchers point out that it's still unclear what drives clumps and holes to form. Further experts note that while three-dimensional shapes and reality only have height, width, and depth, the math used to define these shapes can contain up to 5, 6, 7 or up to 11 dimensions outside of physical space. Spaces with a higher number of dimensions often used to represent complex data structures or system conditions. For example, the state of a dynamic system in this state space is the combination of all the degrees of freedom that the system has, and its state is represented by the hypothetical values assigned to the degrees of freedom. The study uses algebraic topological models to describe different structures and multidimensional geometric spaces in human brain networks. Research has since revealed how the meshes are formed, and how they are interlaced in a unity, creating a precise geometric structure. Scientists have found a world we have never imagined before. They detected tens of millions of objects even in a small part of the brain with up to 7 dimensions. In some networks they even detected structures up to 11 dimensions. More work will be needed to determine how the complexity of the multidimensional geometrical structures formed by our neurons corresponds to the complexity of different cognitive tasks. But this is definitely a new step towards understanding the human brain, the soul. What happens when you think, how you store your knowledge and use it whenever you store it, where's the data and information you get? If you live to be 70, you will be able to remember about 15 trillion distinct things, from your phone number to the most detailed and astonishing facts. Your too latent or subconscious memories can hold much more than that. To keep up with these facts, your brain uses more than 10,000 million neurons, and you are using a number that can be many times larger today. Urban Moon says that the human brain contains 100 times more nerves than all the world's telephone systems combined. Scattered throughout our bodies there are about 200,000 living thermometer cells, 500,000 pressure cells, and 324 million pain cells. The electrical signals from these cells plus the signals from the eyes, ears, the nose and from the sensitive areas for taste, touch, all lead to the brain, where it's a jumble of signals that are classified, stored, and acted upon by the normal human nervous system. 100 million sensations per second. Our brain is truly an amazing supercomputer. One magazine even stated that a surface as wide as the Earth's surface was needed for computers to have enough room. The task of these supercomputers was to record and calculate the data that a human brain people record and use. One thing is clear, that when people use their brains, people use them naturally. Things that are already programmed, humans cannot plan or develop it. The only logical conclusion is that our Creator made it. Human brain is so complex that it is beyond our understanding. Not only the brain, other parts of our body also contains the wonders of creation. For example, our heart weighs only about 297 grams, but it pumps 100,000 times a day, or about 400 million times a year in a person's life. It pumped like that for 70 years or more. They pump non-stop. It's self-contained. It doesn't need external power, and it doesn't pause for maintenance or extra fuel. Who made this NGU and automatic self-propelled pump with all his efforts? Man can only imitate its perfect model, but we will never come close to being able to match that mechanism. The average human has about 5.4 liters of blood, which the heart circulates continuously, and this blood has 25 million red blood cells, 10 million of which need to be replaced every second. With the discovery of the dimensional universe in the human brain, many scholars have recalled the Buddha's lecture 3,000 years ago, when Shakyamuni Buddha once preached in a grain of sand with 3,000 great thousand worlds. With the recently published discovery of scientists, we can see that it is time to rethink the teachings of the monks. In the past, many scientists denied the teachings of the former enlightened ones, simply because they had not found such evidence. Discussing the relationship between science and Buddhism, Einstein wrote, "Buddhism does not need to revise its views to update with new discoveries of science. Buddhism does not need to give up its views to follow the trend of science, because Buddhism embraces science as well as transcends science. Mankind are too hot small in front of the big universe. What we can't see does not mean that they don't exist." If this discovery is true, then from 3,000 years ago, The Buddha with his cultivation had wisdom beyond thousands of human years. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.